Welcome back to PH.d TV, and today we'll be going over top 5 international whiskeys and their best offerings. Starting off with number 1, that's going to be Crown Classic. The one that we all know, the purple label, the one that you see when you see a Crown commercial, that is the one you typically always see. That's one that all of our dads like. It's the whiskey that even women who do not like whiskey like. To me, I feel like this is easily the most universal whiskey that, again, for people who don't like whiskey, sometimes tend to like this one. And it is from Canada, in case you didn't know, but Canadian whiskey, probably from Canada. Get the gist, this is also gonna be found almost anywhere you go in every single store. Which brings me back to a rule that I'm following in this entire list. You have to be able to find each and every single one of these in the average store. So yes, of course, in a more specialty liquor store of fine spirits and things like that, you will find much more expensive and probably much more hard to find things there. This list is going to be reserved for those things that we can find in the basic store. That's probably in most bars and probably just for easy universal finds. Going back to original Crown, you'll find that the notes are muted and mild with notes of vanilla, caramel, and light oak, and the palate is balanced with hints of vanilla, spice, and rich dried fruit, and the finish is medium in length with light vanilla, subtle spice, and it does have an incredibly smooth finish, which honestly I feel is what goes into the likability, as well as the factor of most people enjoying it because it's not harsh whatsoever, it's easy and enjoyable. And next up, we're gonna stick with Crown. Bear with me, this is the last one on the list. With all the flavors Crown has, we could be here all day. But this is the only other Crown flavor on this list, and that's gonna be Crown Black. And to my understanding, this was their rendition of bourbon or bourbon style whiskey, because you can't make bourbon unless you're in Kentucky or certain parts of Tennessee, but predominantly Kentucky. So with them being in Canada, that's a little problematic, but this was their way of doing their best to make a darker and more richer tasting Crown. And to me, this is my personal favorite version of Crown. If I wasn't going for a universal appeal, such as the original Crown we just spoke of, this would easily be the one that I would keep for me. Crown Black is fantastic. And the body is sweet and just like the standard Crown Royal, but it is laced with intense oily wood notes, cinnamon, black pepper, and dried figs. And surprisingly, it's mild for 90 proof, that even the wood character even overpowers the alcohol out of the spirit. And it does have a long smoldering finish, like a campfire burning to ash, as the website says. It's just so good, especially if you really like those wood notes. And the next one comes from the house of Jameson. And yes, the original Jameson is fantastic. It can be seen as being potentially the most successful Irish whiskey of our modern day, potentially tied with Bushmills, because that's fantastic too. And if I recall, I believe it's the oldest distillery in the world. Maybe wrong, I'd have to fact check that, but I want to say it is. But Jameson easily, if you're going to a party and you want to bring something that everyone's going to enjoy in terms of an Irish whiskey, 90% of the time someone's going to bring Jameson. But the one that we're going to specifically look at for Jameson is going to be Jameson Black Barrel. And very similar to how Crown Royal, Crown Black was going for that bourbon style tasting, in terms of how they tried to make it, Jameson kind of did the same thing here, really delving into a darker edition of their whiskey with a more full-bodied flavor. Just, add in a little something to make it even a little bit more harsh, but much more full-bodied, darker, and delicious in its own way. Ultimately, Jameson Black Barrel is adored for its vanilla sweetness, caramel, spicy, butterscotch flavor notes, and it is rich and fruity with notes of tropical fruits, guava, and a thick core of sweet cereals. And the palate is thick and full with intense, unctuous creaminess alongside with dates of walnuts and peels, with good peach and coconut notes with a little cinnamon for a long and very fruity finish with notes of cinnamon, nutmeg, and hints of potpourri. And next up, we're gonna be swinging into Japan with Suntory whiskey, specifically their Toki. And to me, I just think this is easily gonna be one of the most cleanest, most beautiful, genuinely beautiful work of art type bottles. Granted, I just have a weak spot for Oriental type art and stylizations, but I truly feel like this is just easy sipping material here. If you want something different, something that's not an Irish whiskey, something that's not Canadian, something that's clearly not American, such as like a Kentucky or Tennessee bourbon or whiskey, or anywhere in America's whiskey, this is a great alternative if you want to keep it light, keep it easy, to something that does have a very distinct Oriental type flavoring. Because while you have the dark brown you know, liquors and you have like that dark caramel colors, and sometimes they even look red in certain lights. This is a clear gold look. It's very distinct. Some people would probably say it looks like urine, which I can see where they're coming from, but if you're looking at the complete artistic side of whiskey making, it's a beautiful color and enticing to know what the flavor tastes like. And you do get a lot of basil, green apple, and honey with grapefruit and green grapes, peppermint, and thyme, with a finish that is subtle and sweet with a spicy finish with a hint of vanilla oak, white pepper, and ginger. To me, this is one that I do not get a lot, but every time I have had this, I have enjoyed sipping it, and it is a delicacy in its own way. And it's relatively affordable as well, so that's a good plus too. And going back to Ireland, we're gonna go to Bushmills. And I know I mentioned this before, but I said, you know, Bushmills is probably gonna be the better Irish whiskey in my opinion. Jameson to me is like Jack Daniels. I like Jack Daniels, it's perfectly fine, but I feel like it's almost so mass produced that it does lose a little bit of artisticness in the whiskey. Same thing with Jameson, I do feel like it's so mass produced that I do feel like it loses a little bit of artisticness somewhere along the lines until they go into some of the flankers. Whereas Bushmills have kept it small, they've kept it real, and they've kept it the same recipe over and over and over, and it is just divine. I had Bushmills recently within this past year, and I'm gonna take Bushmills well over Jameson any day, you know, any time of the year. If I went to the bar and everyone was getting Jameson, I'd probably get Jameson then, but if it was optional, I would get Bushmills. It is just smooth and mellow, just like the bottle says. It's just, to me, an incredible Irish whiskey. And the nose is aromatic with a sweet Riesling type quality, with herbs and blossom, with a fruity aromatic palate, with salty butter, with all kinds of blossom, sweet vanilla, cream, and citrus, with a finish that is malty, cardamom, and ginger right on the tail of it. I just think it's fantastic. And that's my list, that's my top 5. If I had to put in an honorable mention, which I will right now, I'm gonna have to roll with Slane Irish Whiskey. Yes, I know it's another Irish whiskey, there's been quite a bit on here, but that's why it's an honorable mention. I think Slane Irish Whiskey is very good, does the job. I still think Bushmills is the best in terms of best Irish whiskey, and Jameson's best for overall crowd pleasing. But I think if you want to shake things up and try something new, I would say try Slane. Because on the nose, it does have a complex fruit that drizzles with caramel, butterscotch, and vanilla, has brown spice and toasted with oak, and on the palate, it is spicy at first, but quickly sweetened with rich caramel, vanilla, and butterscotch atop a deep layer of dried fruit with a luxurious finish hinting at dried fruit and caramelized sugar. Yeah, if you want to try something that's not necessarily, in my opinion, the best Irish whiskey versus the most mass produced, try Slane. And that's my list. If you like this, please like and subscribe down below. If you think someone might enjoy this, please share it with them. And please check out my other videos. Do it now, do it later. It's up to you. You do you. And I'll see you next time.